Hey everyone, this is Megan, your TA again with another tree ID video. So this week you tried to use the dichotomous key for the Arboretum to identify trees by using their bark. So I'm just going to review these 10 tree species again using the key and then share some quick ways to help identify the trees afterwards. So make sure you have your key to follow along and try to ID some samples if you have any, or pictures or trees or whatever. So this is our first species we have here. So looking up at the top, we can't really identify the branching very well, so we'll just hop to number 3 on the key. And we can see here that the bark is more of the second option because it's rough and kind of broken up, not smooth. So we can go to 6, and then here we see that the ridges do intersect. So you can find these little junctions where they kind of cross and overlap and stuff. So because of that, we'll go to 7, and then you can see here with the key characteristics for the hickories, they have these diamond pattern ridges. So kind of right here you can see an example. It's where they cross over, so it makes a diamond. You can see kind of right here too, just kind of these little diamond patches in there. So because of that, we can go to 8, and then this example here is not peeling that much, but it's about the same shade all around, so we know that this is a hickory. So the quick things to remember with the hickory is the diamond patterning and stuff that you can see, and then also the lower branches. The branches will be lower, so you can almost reach them, unlike the oaks and stuff, and they'll always be kind of short and stubby, not going out too far, so low and short and stubby branches. So now we'll go over the 4 oaks that we have here in the Arboretum. So there's actually 2 divisions. There's the white oaks and the red oaks. So the white oak is obviously in the white oak division, and the chestnut oak is actually in the white oak division as well. And then the red oak division includes the northern red oak as well as the black oak. So just to help you kind of identify. So first off here we have a tree, and the branches are super high up there, so we can't really tell what the branching pattern is, so we'll just go to 3 on the key. So this bark is definitely in blocks and ridges. You can see these huge thick blocks everywhere. So we'll definitely, and then here we have a choice if the bark is loose and scaly and flaky or tight and blocky. So this bark is super tight, hard, blocky. I can't wiggle anything and flick anything off with my finger. So we'll go to number 11 because it's not flaky. And then here we see that the bark fits the description with the gray blocky ridges. And if you look close here, you'll see that down here in the cracks there's this rusty red brown color in here. So those are the signs that this is a chestnut oak. So just things to look out for with chestnut oaks. So they're definitely going to have the chunkiest, biggest, blocky bark here in the Arboretum. And then the ridges go all the way up to the top of the tree as well, and they stay kind of consistent. And right here to our chestnut oak on the left, we have this tree right here. So with this tree, still can't really see the branches because they're all the way up there, so we'll go to 3 on the key. And we see that the bark definitely is broken into little blocky chunks and stuff. It's not smooth, very blocky looking. So because of that, we'll go to number 6 on the key. And then here we see that the blocks are kind of all independent. They don't really intersect or anything. You can outline each of them. So because of that, we'll go to number 9 on the key. And then at the 9, we see that the bark would fit the loose, scaly, flaky kind of decision. So we can see here that you can kind of get your finger under here, and I'd be able to snap off some if I wanted to. So you can just hear it's all flaky and peely and stuff. So for that, we'll go to 10, and then at 10, we see that the bark fits the second option. So it's pretty like light in color, so it's light and gray and flaky. So because of that, we know that it's a white oak. So things to look out for with the white oak: it does not have the diamond shapes that we see on the hickories. And then also here in the arboretum, it'll likely be like some of the lightest bark you'll see. So if it's super light in color, that'll help you identify that's a white oak. And then a good thing to look up for is definitely to look up at the top of the tree. So you can kind of see here that the bark like really gets super flaky, like it looks like it could just fall off. So that's a really good way of like confirming that it's a white oak, that it has this super flaky bark at the top, but then when you come to the bottom, it's kind of the chunky blocky ridge thing. Okay, so this tree that we have here, if we try to look up at the top, we can't really tell the branching pattern. So we can just go to 3, and then because the bark is broken up into blocks, you can see like kind of up close here, broken into blocks, so not smooth. So we'll go to 6 on the key, and because you can kind of outline them with your finger and they don't overlap, that means they don't intersect, so we'll go to number 9. And then this bark is tight and not flaky, so we should go to 11. And then we can see it doesn't really fit the first description, so we should go to 12 on the key. And then at 12, we see it would fit the second option because this bark is pretty dark gray compared to the other trees around. And it has shallow broken ridges, not like super duper deep. And they're all like very hard and tight. So we know from that that this is a black oak. So things to look out for with the black oak: has it'll have the broken ridges, and it has very like hard and tight bark. So if you're in between a black oak and a black gum, one way you can try to tell the difference is the black oak will be pretty tough, like you won't really be able to push it down too much, it's pretty hard, whereas the gum will be kind of corky, so like when you push it down it'll like kind of spring a little bit. So because this one's hard, we know that it's a black oak. And then they kind of look similar to the white oak, but if you look up at the top, it has the same blocky pattern all the way up to the top. And then if you remember back to the white oak gets flaky at the top. So those are some ways to help figure out if it's a black oak. So this tree right here will be our last oak that we'll look at. So again, the branches are super high up there, so we can't really determine the branching pattern. So we'll just go to 3 on the key. And then we can see that the bark is definitely more of the second option because it's not smooth, like there's these ridges everywhere and it's broken up. So because of that, we'll hop to 6 on the key. And then here we see that the ridges actually do intersect over each other. You can kind of see like they're not separated, like I couldn't outline with my one with my finger, like they kind of just overlap and stuff. So because of that, we'll go to number 7. And then at 7 we see that the ridges are long, shallow, and flat. So they're all like pretty close to the tree, like there's not super deep valleys that you could like put your fingers under. They're all pretty flat and smooth. So because of that, we know that it's actually a northern red oak. And the key thing to kind of look for with the northern red oak is those kind of ridges. We call them like ski slopes. So they look like a ski slope that you'd hop on Massanutten. So yeah, key things to look out for with the northern red oak: the ski slope will be the main giveaway, and then they sometimes have the diamonds that kind of touch each other, but they won't really look like the hickory diamonds. And then near the bottom, they'll actually kind of have, let's see, these like ridges down here that you see with some of the other oaks. So you can see that more like blocky pattern kind of coming out. But as soon as you get to like eye level and up, it's the ski slopes the whole way up that I kind of have centered here. This is another good example of the ski slopes kind of in a better lighting. So you can see that they're kind of just like these squiggly like snake ski slope trails that go all the way up the tree. Okay, so right now I'm looking at kind of one of the trickier trees in my opinion to identify here in the arboretum, because they all kind of look a little bit different, but there's definitely some key characteristics you can look out for and things that'll differentiate it from the other species it might try to look like. So for this example, can't really determine the branching pattern, so we'll just hop to 3 on the key. And then you can see that the bark is broken into little blocks here. Pretty clear, not smooth at all. So we'll go to 6 on the key, and then at 6, we can say that the blocks do not intersect because like they kind of all have their own little outline and you can outline them. None of them really cross over each other. So because of that, we'll go to 9 on the key. And then this bark is tight and not like flaky at all. So we should go to 11. So you can see here that like you can't really flake it off. It's pretty tight. And here at 11, we can see it doesn't fit the first description. So we should go to 12. And then at 12, we see that it would fit the first option because it has these super deep and short little blocks. So you can see like I can fit like half of my like fingernail kind of like in the cracks here. And then also these blocks are like pretty like small, but like that's another thing with this tree. They won't always be this small, they'll be different sizes. But the main thing that they'll all like usually have is like this deep crevice that none of the other trees really have here. So because of this, we know that this is a black gum. So things to look out for with the black gum, it'll have like these short little broken chunks that are really deep. So they'll kind of look like the dogwood, but the dogwood will never have crevices this deep. So that's a way to remember it. So this next tree that I'm gonna go over, there's actually kind of multiple ways you have to identify it. You can use it differently using this key. Because this tree actually looks pretty different at different stages in its life. So first we'll do a younger version of this tree. Okay, so these two trees right here are young maples. So you will probably be able to see the branching pattern better on a young maple than an older one. But just know that red maples have opposite branching, which is like pretty not as common in the arboretum. Most of them have alternate branching. So if you see opposite, then that's like a key giveaway that it's probably a maple. So yeah, so you'll see that it has opposite branching, and if not, that's okay. But if you see that it has opposite branching, you can hop to 2 on the key. And then on the key, you'll see that this bark fits like the smooth gray kind of option. Not really broken or any ridges or anything. So because of that, you'll know that it's a red maple based off of the key. So things to look out with the young red maples, they'll be smooth and all the way to the top. So they might kind of look like a black birch from far away, but if you look up close here, you'll see with the black birch that they have these long horizontal lines called lenticels. But with the maples, they kind of have little dots and stuff, but they don't have those like clear, distinct horizontal ones. And then another thing to look for is down here at the bottom of the trees, it's actually starting to get broken ridges forming. So you'll see why that's important in a second. But so if you see the broken ridges like kind of just a foot on the bottom and then smooth all the way up with no lenticels, then you know it's a young red maple. But right here, this big tree is an example of an older red maple. So here you might not be able to determine the branching pattern as well since the branches are a little bit further away. So you can hop to 3 on the key, and then we definitely say that this is like broken like rough ridges for the bark. So we'll go to number 6 on the key, and then the bark is made of blocks that don't really intersect. You can kind of like outline them with your finger. So since they don't intersect, we'll go to number 9. And then at 9, we'll see that the bark would fit like the loose, scaly, flaky description. Because you can see right here, this is a good example. Like I could just snap this off. It's very flaky. So it would fit that description. So you'd go to number 10. And then at 10, we'd pick the first option because the bark is mainly divided into these scaly like ridges. And the key giveaway is as you look up with the tree, at the very top, it's actually smooth bark. So this should look familiar because the younger maple has that same smooth looking bark at its base. So if you see a tree that has like flaky, blocky pattern at the bottom, and when you look at the top it's smooth, then you know that it's an older red maple. And another thing that you can kind of use to help differentiate it, like right now only for this time, is they're budding right now, and you'll see their red buds, and they're like the main tree that's budding right now, but pretty soon you won't be able to go off of that. So just remember with the red maple, if you see opposite branching, you can usually tell it's a red maple, and then the bark varies with age, so it's smoother when it's younger, and then it gets more like flaky and chunky as it gets older, but still stays smooth at the top. This tiny tree right here, we actually could look up and see that it has opposite branching. So it's like one of the 2 trees in the arboretum that we'll be looking at that has opposite branching. So if you see opposite branching, you can immediately hop to 2 on the key, and then at 2, we'll see that the bark is broken into these super tiny, like small blocky ridges right here. So since it's not smooth, we know that this is a dogwood. And then the things to look out for with the dogwood is the opposite branching, and then these are small understory trees, so they're really not going to get above 10 centimeters in diameter. Like, I can almost fit my hand around this one. And they're all will be like about this size or smaller likely, but you might find a bigger one. And then the giveaway is like this kind of dog kibble shaped pattern right here. And then also this is different than the black gum because this is like pretty flush and delicate. Like these ridges are super like shallow. They're not deep at all. Like you couldn't fit your finger in them. So it might look like a black gum, but you'll know it's a dogwood because it's like delicate and smooth, and the tree will likely be like not super big. We'll say that we can't really determine the branching on this tree, so we can hop to 3 on the key, and then at 3 we see that this bark is smooth, like it's very flush. There's not a bunch of like craggly, scaly, broken ridges, so we'll say that it's smooth. So since it's smooth, we'll go to 4 on the key, and this bark does not have lenticels. So lenticels are those horizontal kind of like ridges that you'll see on bark. So these don't have horizontal ridges. So because it doesn't have lenticels, you should go to option 5. And then at option 5, we'll see the first option where it says there are obvious vertical lines. So we'll know that this is a tulip poplar because of that. So this is actually a young tulip poplar. So when it's younger, it'll be like very like smooth, and it'll have like these nice like vertical white lines you can easily see going up most of the tree. So it'll all be pretty smooth. I'll show you an example of an older one. So here we see an example of an older tulip poplar. So it still has the same general characteristics, but it definitely looks different than the younger one. So the main things to look out for again are like these vertical, like kind of shaped ridges and stuff that were kind of like those vertical lines. And then you'll see as you look close, like the little valleys usually are white, and then the outside is more of like a grayish brown. So it's almost like you inflated the younger one and just kind of puffed out like popcorn. So that's kind of like how you can tell, because it has like these vertical ridges, and they kind of have like, it's like somebody sanded it down because they have like little horizontal lines, and it's all pretty flat. So that's an older tulip poplar. So this last tree we have here, we'll say that we can't determine the branching pattern, so you can hop to 3 on the key. And then at 3 we'd say it has smooth bark. So unlike most of them here, this bark's smooth, not broken, no like huge ridges or blocks or anything. So we'll go to 4 on the key, and then at 4 we see that we should choose the first option because this tree has something called lenticels. So if you look up close, so all these like horizontal lines that kind of pop out on the tree all over, those are lenticels. So whenever you see these like in abundant number and they're very large, then you know that this is actually a black birch. So the key things to look out with the black birch are the smooth bark and then the lenticels. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope the video helped. Remember, you can always go to your professor's office hours or drop by the TA help sessions, which are every Sunday night from 8 to 9 p.m. You just have to look up the WebEx link on Canvas, which should be under your files or in like the first module or something. and you'll just click on the link for whichever TA is hosting that night.